It was the famous American author Ernest Hemingway. When asked, how do you go bankrupt? He says in two ways, gradually and then quickly. And never before has anybody had a more accurate statement around finance. Once you start going bankrupt, it happens quite slowly. The downhill that you hit becomes almost impossible to avoid. And South Africa has reached that point. We are in the grips of the debt monster. And anybody who's ever got onto the wrong side of their own finances will understand that it's the debt that kills you. Because the people that you owe money to, they don't care about your intentions or your issues. They just want to be repaid. They've given you money. You've signed a contract somewhere. They want their money back. And there are the conditions. You pay them back or else you are going to go bankrupt. And South Africa is officially going bankrupt. Now, we are in the week of the budget. And South Africa has got some startling figures, which you may have heard because they've been out in the news. But let's just recap where we are and why South Africa has earned itself the distinction of getting classified as junk status, which means it's not investment grade. In other words, if you give us money, don't expect it to be paid back. South Africa is officially in junk status. As of last year, South Africa had debt of $311 billion. $311 billion. Let that sink in. We pay interest of more than $200 billion, 200 billion rand per year that we pay in interest. In other words, about 800 million rand a day, and it's probably closer to R1 billion per day, gets paid just in interest, not to pay back the capital, but just to pay in interest. Our debt is now 85,000 rand per man, woman, and child in this country. And as the government says so proudly, we've got 50% of our country unemployed. So in other words, even those unemployed people and their children who have got very little chance of getting a job all owe about 85,000 rand per person in debt and growing. In 2012, right, under the Zuma administration, the guy who the MK party think will fix the country, his Finance Minister then said that Treasury will cap our GDP, our debt relative to our GDP at 40%. This was in 2012. For the last year, our debt to GDP ratio has been at 75%. That was at the last budget, and now it's 79%. South Africa is in very deep trouble. So just like with your own budget, there's two considerations. We all know this, even the non-accountants among us. You get the money that comes in, you get the money that goes out. More money must come in than go out, or else you have a problem. Your debt will increase. So what are the options open to our Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana? Well, he's got two options. He can increase his income, or he can decrease what he pays out. So let's examine that. How does he do either of those? Well, he does the increase of income in two ways. One is by increasing taxes. The other is by the economy growing. So in other words, we just create more goods and services, the economy gets better, and money flows into the fiscus. Or he raises taxes. Now, the problem with raising taxes is often it has the opposite effect. You raise taxes, you make it less appealing to do business. There's less incentive for people to make money or start businesses. So the country gets less money in when you raise taxes very often. That's why raising taxes may give you a boost in the short term, but perhaps not in the long term. So which taxes could he raise? Well, we all know that the ANC hates rich people, so the easy thing is to go after the rich people. The problem is we've chased away many of the rich people, and if you are super rich in South Africa, you're not stupid. You could have seen this coming a while off. Maybe go back to 2012 when we were trying to cut our debt to GDP ratio to 40%. And people have taken their money offshore. Or that money sits in tax-free places, either internally, domestically, or internationally. So you're not going to get more money out of the rich people. And let's understand that a big portion of our country doesn't pay tax. So if you just stay in that part of town, you're just never going to pay tax. So to raise taxes on rich people probably won't give you much of a return. Raise tax on companies? Well, the ANC and President Ramaphosa said he's going to do that by having a tax on profit so that he can create a $100 billion BEE fund so that he can take from people who are making profits to give to people who won't make profits. Now, that also has a limited effectiveness, because if they increase the profit on your taxes, anybody who's ever run a company would understand that it's very easy. You just don't reflect higher profits. And you can do this all legally. You just increase the perks, you increase the expenditure of a company so that you don't show a lot of profit. So increasing tax on a company is probably not a good idea. Well, you can do it. You're just not going to get much of a return. South Africa is already a very, very highly taxed country and not competitive at all. Where does that leave us? Well, that leaves us with the easiest tax to raise, and that is VAT. But raising VAT is very, very politically unpopular, because VAT is something that is paid by all the citizens, and half of this country is suffering in the extreme. They're unemployed, so any raise in VAT just kills them. The other half of the people who are working are literally, living from day to day. So raising VAT on most people with jobs isn't really going to be too popular. So can we cut expenditure? Well, hell yes. We've got 75 ministers and deputy ministers with homes in Cape Town, homes in Pretoria, cars for days, security details, cell phone contracts, blue lights, extra batteries in their cars for the blue lights. You got to buy those pointy shoes. They don't come cheap. But that then becomes very unpopular with your comrades. So we are not going to cut expenditure. Cyril Ramaphosa, when he came into power, said that what he's going to do is cut the size of government, and he's done exactly the opposite. Can he cut social grants? I would say not without a riot. So there's no way that we're cutting social grants. Besides, that's become his only kind of electioneering thing. He's very proud of the fact that we pay social grants to half the country. He sees that as an achievement. Maybe some of these crazy plans that are going to cost a lot of money, like national health insurance, well, that's going to cost trillions of rands. Maybe it's time to consider whether that's actually viable. But let's now view this budget in the light of the Government of National Unity, because this will be the first budget that doesn't belong only to the ANC. And we should all be very aware of it. This budget that comes out, as unpopular as it's going to be, must be owned by the ANC and the Democratic Alliance and the Freedom Front Plus and the IFP and the Patriotic Alliance, as well as the rats and mice, right? These that are in the Government of National Unity. These guys are all part of cabinet. This is their budget. If you have supported one of those parties, this is your budget. The people you voted for are running this mess. Now, we know that one of the big appeals of the Government of National Unity, one of the big selling points, was going to be better fiscal management. Now, we're about to go over the cliff. We've got talk of the Finance Minister looking for a further loan of $27 billion at the World Bank. World Bank saying, I'm not sure you're good for this debt. But when that debt gets rung up, it's going to be rung up in the name of the Government of National Unity. Now, I thought that the reason that they formed the Government of National Unity was because you're going to get business involved. We're going to have these business-friendly policies. Oh no, nothing like that. In fact, ever since the Government of National Unity has been formed, the state has been more stridently anti-business than before. Yeah, we've seen some interest rate cut, but that's just a function of very high interest rates, very low inflation. In fact, it's a miracle South Africa has inflation at all because you can afford higher prices. So this isn't an achievement of government. This is just market forces at work. Well, I want to know where the Government of National Unity, when they will take ownership for this budget, because up until now, there have been some easy rides. You could blame everything on ANC policies. But now, these are the policies of the ANC, the DA, the IFP, Freedom Front Plus, Patriotic Alliance. Understand that when the finance minister goes up there and raises taxes, he's not raising it as an ANC government that has stolen your money. He is doing this as the finance minister of a Government of National Unity, representing them, and they must agree with him that those taxes must be raised. So I would say that as much as we can blame the past on the ANC's failings because their economic policies have been terrible, that's what got us into trouble in the first place. But it's time that the Government of National Unity and all of those parties that I mentioned take ownership for the mess that's going on in our economy. These were the guys that said, we've got to avoid the doomsday scenario, the doomsday pact, that are going to run the country so badly from an economic point of view. But don't worry, the good guys are now in the Government of National Unity, and business is going to be great. Well, we did see a slight improvement in sentiment, but we haven't seen one business-friendly policy. All we keep on hearing about is more money going to more harebrained schemes. All we know is that there's a push to continue to put in plans that we can't pay for. I mean, even hidden in the Bell Act, it wasn't hidden, but they just added another year onto schooling. That increases the cost of schooling, which I think is important. But please understand the economic impact. You know, we'd all love nice things. And some stuff would be we all need a nice new laptop, but that costs money. And it's good that children are going to grade R, but the state has to pay for this. So in other words, the education budget has to go up. National health insurance is going to be the Lollapalooza of money spending. And this must fall quite squarely in the lap of the Government of National Unity. We better get used to saying that, because the honeymoon is over, and every decision coming out of the government now comes out of the Government of National Unity, not the ANC. We can blame Cyril, we can dislike Cyril, we can dislike his policies, but understand that what happens when the finance minister reads his budget, he reads it as part of the Government of National Unity. They're going to have to vote on it. In other words, this budget has to be passed. Now what happens? Now it's going to get serious. It's going to be fun, because he's going to come out with a budget that's going to push our debt to GDP ratio even more. It's going to make no option of economic growth possible because we've got business unfriendly policies. And eventually, in about a week after the budget, all those parliamentarians have to sit there and approve the budget. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what these supposedly business-friendly parties in the Government of National Unity say when they have to vote to approve this budget. Or are they actually going to grow a backbone and say, no, this is a bad budget? Well, time will tell. I get the feeling that this will be yet another red line that will be crossed. We're now crossing so many red lines, it looks ridiculous, where the Government of National Unity says, no, get our spending under control. But when push comes to shove, the allure of those parliamentary positions, those cabinet positions, the blue lights, the houses here, the houses there, the international travel, minister this, minister that, don't look me in the eye because I'm the minister, is going to be too strong. And those Government of National Unity parties are going to show themselves to be the weaklings that they've been. They won't hold the ANC to account. They'll just say, we hate it, we'll vote for it. And they will clap like seals when we have the budget debate, and they will then defend our economic policies, knowing that it won't lead to the economic growth that we need and greater debt. Remember one thing, please remember this, and that is South Africa chooses to be poor. We could choose to be rich, but we choose to be poor. And the minute we get that into our heads as South Africans, maybe we'd start making different choices. But understand that becoming rich is a very easy thing. We can point to many, many countries that have decided to be rich. South Africa chooses to be poor, and now we've got parties that we think are there for us, but they're choosing to keep us poor. So hold on, strap yourselves in. This budget's going to be rough. Okay, it might be so rough that we'll try and ignore it. But ultimately, when that bank starts sending you emails and SMSs, it's very, very hard to ignore. And I presume the World Bank also sends emails and SMSs. We're going to get some in this country. This budget's going to be rough. And if you want to help yourself to something that will save you money, if you need to rent a car, go to Pace Car Rental. At least you can get a discount there if you use our code SONA when you hire a car through their website. We'll keep the information coming. Stay tuned to the State of the Nation. Subscribe to the channel. We'll see you again soon.